Hi, Dr. Westman here for another Dr. Westman Reacts. When I found this video, Does the Keto Diet Kill? A doctor reviews low-carb diets and mortality, I was very curious because I've been following a keto diet basically for over 20 years. Why am I not dead yet?
Hey guys, I'm Siobhan, a second-year medical resident. Today we're tackling a super
Okay, so a second-year medical resident. Now, I'm actually impressed. I like the idea that young doctors are reviewing evidence and looking at the literature. I'm wondering now, is the diet killing, is this for real? I mean, or is it hyperbole? Is it an exaggeration to get people to watch the video? Let's see.
Controversial issue, and that's the keto diet. The question is the keto diet actually making you live longer, or could it be actually killing you faster?
The keto diet is a very low carbohydrate diet. About 75% of calories come from fat, 20% from protein, and only 5% from carbs. It's become one of the most popular diets online, and it's been praised for weight loss, heart health, diabetes management, and some even believe it fights cancer. But others think it's probably just a fad diet.
Oh, hang on. She forgot to mention the dozens of randomized controlled trials about low-carb keto diets for the treatment of obesity and diabetes, which I think is the mainstay of the science that says this is actually a fine thing to do, and no one's been killed that I'm aware of in these studies, or even like in a I was expecting maybe we would see like a murder, someone being killed, but okay, that was a little exaggeration for effect.
And it's just gonna come and go.
Just this week, there was a groundbreaking article from The Lancet which totally changed the conversation. It's an article that looked at how much carbohydrates people are eating and if that affected life expectancy. By the end of this video, you should be able to make an educated decision about what you want to do with your diet. And then I'm going to urge you to share this with people you care about, because this could actually affect how long they live.
Oh, maybe, it's Violin MD. Maybe people live longer, and that's what the study said.
So those of you who've been following my journey in the hospital as a new doctor know that about 6 weeks ago I started the keto diet. And the reason I did that is because overnight I find there are just so many chips and snacks and candy, and this whole year I just feel like I have strayed from my normal habits, and so I kind of just needed like a reset, and I figured that keto would do that. And it did. Like, I lost a couple of pounds that I put on last year, and I haven't been having sugar cravings. It was great. So this week, when I was flipping through my computer, I saw this article, and I figured it was gonna tell me that the lower the carbs you eat, the longer you live, but that's not exactly what it says. So the study started about 30 years ago when they recruited a whole bunch of adults from 4 different communities in the US. They recruited about 15,000 adults and then had them do surveys, and they kept track of their health, and they tracked them over about 30 yeas.
Okay, so this is a study, an observational study. We call that hypothesis generating. It's not a clinical trial or a randomized control trial, if at all possible. So there's some limitation already to the findings. I would not say it's definitive, no matter what the result is, whether it's for or against keto diet.
So let's pretend these Skittles represent the people in the study. First, let's divide them into the amount of carbs they eat in a day. The yellow ones are the low-carb group, and so these people got less than 40% of their calories from carbs.
40% carbs? The keto diet, as she explained, was 5 to 10% carbs. So there are going to be a lot of people eating 40%, 30%, 20%, 15% who are not really following a keto diet, who are in this group of the low carb. High carb, over 70%, is actually pretty typical these days, I'm afraid. So from my perspective, the gradation of carbohydrates is rather crude to be able to say, well, it can't really say anything about a keto diet unless they've measured under 5% and split that category off. Let's see what they did.
The green ones are the moderate carb group, so these guys got about half of the calories from carbs. And the red ones are the high carb group, where they got over 70% of their calories from carbs. Of course, this is a simplified model, and in the study they worked with really fancy statistical models to get lots of accurate information. So looking at mortality within these groups, it turned out the low carb group and the high carb group actually died faster than that middle green group. So it looked like Goldilocks and the Three Bears. The middle 50% carb group actually lived the longest. And you can see that it has this U shape, and we actually call that a U-shaped relationship.
They're estimating that in the low carb group and the medium carb group, that was almost a 4-year difference in their life expectancy. That's like high school. That's university. That's so many life experiences.
So hang on. I like her style, and she teaches really well. But the estimate of a 4-year. So basically, you're taking kind of inaccurate information and making an estimate. And so really, this is still, it's hypothesis generating, and I wouldn't draw any conclusions from this study.
That's huge. I mean, we can't ignore that. Definitely not what I expected. Definitely a huge shock to hear. So then the next logical question is, if you have lower carbs, you're eating more fats and proteins, does it matter what types of fats and proteins you're actually eating? So they went back to the database and they looked at all the people, and they wanted to see the group that eats mostly animal products. So they're eating meats and cheese, lamb, pork, beef, chicken, all of that, compared to the people who are eating plant-based proteins and fats. So they're eating nuts and peanut butters and seeds, and they're having lots of vegetables. And unfortunately, all those meat lovers out there, it was very clear that people eating plant-based proteins and fats were living longer than those who ate the animal proteins and fats.
So again, you can't make that kind of determination from this type of study, even though the authors and other reviewers of it will say you can. Again, it's hypothesis generated. Now I'm kind of wondering if the whole plant-based kind of fad that's going on at the moment is infiltrating here, where you can actually see what you want to see, or take very small associations and trumpet that into causation, making a policy decision, which you really can't. You can't take association data and make a determination of policy from that if you want to make it a sound policy.
And that's tough for me. I actually really love a good steak. Oh boy. Oh. So you might be thinking, hold on, Siobhan, I don't live in one of those 4 communities in the US. Maybe these results don't really apply to me. Like me, I live in Canada. I don't live in the US.
Well, and that's a great point. Does this apply to me? I eat about a 5% carbohydrate diet, and if someone's doing a properly formulated low-carb keto diet, it's between 5 and 10% for the day. This study lumped in everyone under 40% into that same category, and still I'm skeptical as to the magnitude of this association, and it's a retrospective or observational study, which doesn't give it near the kind of credibility as a prospective randomized or prospective clinical trial.
But the authors were smart and they thought of this. So they did what we call a meta-analysis, where they took studies that were similar and had results from all around the world and put it all together to see if those results hold true. So when they took the data from other parts of North America, Europe, Asia, they found the same results. People eating the plant-based diets were living longer. So I really don't think that we can ignore these results.
I do. You can. So for every comment that was made, there's other papers that will refute that. Equally good methodology, and I'm afraid this is a little bit overstated. It's an overgeneralization is the technical term, or you could say it's comparing apples to oranges, or you could say it's just weak observational data. Remember, I'm still alive and haven't seen the keto diet killing my patients. I've been using it in my clinic now for over 16 years. But that's not really what they're trying to say. They say it would be a reduced life expectancy, which you might say you won't see in a clinical practice, but still I'm not convinced by this paper and other papers. And I guess in her defense, that some of these other papers have come out after this video was made. So let's see what the bottom line is.
Okay, so after all of this, what is the main take-home message? Basically, you probably shouldn't be eating a low-carb diet that's high in meat products, because it would seem these people are actually dying faster.
A bit about the language. Everyone dies, and she really means is reduced life expectancy. But even then, I don't have the same reliance on this type of evidence to make that kind of conclusion. I went to McMaster in Hamilton, Ontario to take a course called How to Critically Appraise the Literature in 1990, and have followed in the evidence-based medicine footpath and then trail and then now river. And I have to say I'm a bit of an expert in terms of reviewing clinical trials. I've been doing it now for over 30 years. So I wouldn't put that same credence in believability into this paper as this medical resident is. So avoid low carb.
Is that the end of keto? Well, if you choose to do keto, the recommendations from this study would be that you should be making it all about plant-based protein. So lots of nuts and vegetables and healthy oils. That's what you should be getting your protein and your fats from. So basically, don't make the mistake of thinking that keto is just about bacon and fat and grease, because that's probably not the healthiest thing for you.
I eat a lot of bacon, fat, and grease. So it's because on a keto diet, you burn it. You don't store it. It doesn't get into the same trouble. I mean, that's kind of the way to explain why both views can be similar or be correct, is that you're burning the fat when you're not eating the carbohydrates. And I eat a lot of bacon. I don't believe that a plant-based keto diet is necessarily better than a meat-based one. No studies to say that. No prospective, ideally randomized trials to say that.
Okay, so now that we have the information, we need to decide how are we going to actually change our own behaviors to reflect what we believe. And I swear, that is the hardest thing, is actually changing your behavior. So, with you guys as my witness, here is my plan. I am going to be focusing on the sources and the types of foods that I'm eating rather than sort of counting carbs. I'm going to be making sure I'm minimizing the amount of meats and animal products that I'm eating. I also need to minimize the huge amount of carbs that I think I was eating before, with all those treats in the middle of the night and the sugar and the candy. So we know a high carb isn't good either. And I'm going to try to hit that sweet spot of carbs by having lots of vegetables and legumes and all those things that I actually love, but I just need to make sure I prep and plan in advance so that they're ready for me to have in the day. What's your plan going to be?
Actually, I like the conclusion, cutting out junk foods. I'm not so keen on the idea that you have to reduce plants and reduce meat. I think you can eat the meat and be healthy. And I agree that there are different carb levels that people can eat based on your metabolism. If you're trying to reverse obesity or diabetes, you have to keep the carbs super low. And actually my take home is different. And from my clinical experience, you want to focus on keeping the carbs low and not worry so much about where the food came from. And I never prep. I don't know where that comes from. That I can go out and go to a barbecue place or a hamburger place, someone else making the food for me, and eat in a healthy fashion. So, on balance, I think this was a really nice video by a young doctor reviewing one paper, but the title is overblown. The conclusions are overgeneralized, and I don't agree with them. I'm Dr. Eric Westman, and this is Dr. Westman Reacts. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, and check out adaptyourlifeacademy.com.